Thank you for attending the This is New Zealand webinar. The schedule of this webinar will consist of an overview of New Zealand, which will run for approximately 30 minutes. We will then move on to how to get a job in New Zealand, which will go for 10 minutes. We will follow that up with the New Zealand immigration process, which will go for 10 minutes. And we will then have a question and answer session, which will run for approximately 5 to 10 minutes. At any time in this presentation, please feel free to ask any questions on the chat room, and we will be able to answer those questions live in the chat room for you. Let's start off with New Zealand in numbers. New Zealand's population is approximately 4.7 million. Now, a third of the population live in Auckland, which means that we have a lot of space across the country. We have a very multicultural population, which consists of approximately 70% white European New Zealanders, 14% approximately Indigenous Māori, 11% Asian descent, and around 7.6% non-Māori Pacific Islanders. Now, if you've seen our rugby team, you will see it's very multicultural, made up with a lot of people from the Pacific Island. We are very welcoming of migrants, and you'll see in Auckland and the major cities, along with the towns in New Zealand, you will get that feeling that we are made up with a lot of cultures from all over the world, and you will certainly be welcome in New Zealand because of that population mix. So there'll be no doubt that you'll fit in, and you will find Kiwis very, very welcoming of migrants into New Zealand. In terms of the weather, I think the weather is very temperate. Our summers aren't too hot and our winters aren't too cold. Obviously, we have two islands. We have the North Island and we have the South Island. The South Island obviously is a little bit colder. Our summer months are traditionally January and February, which are our warmest months, and July is the coldest month of the year. In summer, you're looking at average temperatures anywhere between 20 to 30 degrees, and during winter, between 10 to 15 degrees. Now, depending where you're from, our weather will be certainly different. And, especially for those of you in the UK, I think we get a lot more sunshine hours, and the days in summer are a lot longer, similar to the winter. As you can see, Auckland, the temperature in Auckland differs quite greatly to the temperature in Christchurch. In Auckland, you have a lot more rainfall on a yearly basis, and in Christchurch, we have more sunshine hours. So what we've tried to do here in this table is give you an understanding of our sunshine hours and also our rainfall when compared to Birmingham, Pretoria, and Vancouver as examples. So depending where you're from, definitely the weather will be different. I think the main positive in New Zealand is we do have the seasons, and it doesn't get too hot and it doesn't get too cold in the summer and the winter. So it's a very temperate climate, which is very comfortable to live in, and you're not, especially in the winter, not requiring that fire, and in the summer you're not requiring that air conditioning. In terms of the housing in New Zealand, we would recommend that you rent a home once you move to New Zealand. Most rental properties are unfurnished. You will get the oven and the carpets and the curtains included in the tenancy. Rent is normally paid weekly, and a 4-week bond is to be paid up front. Now, the landlord pays the council tax, or what we call rates, and this is included in the rental price. In some areas, tenants do not need to pay for water usage. Okay. If you're renting a house, we would recommend that you have home and contents insurance, and some great websites here for you to have a look at, which will give you an understanding of the cost of renting, but also the types of houses visually, are trademe.co.nz/property and realestate.co.nz. Take a note of these websites. We will be sending you these websites after the webinar, but I think it's really important for you to get an idea of the cost on a weekly and monthly basis, and also what you're going to be getting, and those websites will be able to provide you with that information so you can look into that. In terms of average weekly rental prices, they will differ from depending on where you live. If you look at Auckland, very expensive because it's New Zealand's biggest city. When you compare that to somewhere like Invercargill, which is the bottom of the South Island. So in Auckland, 3-bedroom house, 875 New Zealand dollars per week. A 4-bedroom house, nearly 1,200 New Zealand dollars a week, when compared to 250 in Invercargill for a 3-bedroom house, and 280 for 4-bedroom. So if I were you, I would be doing research in terms of where you're looking to live and what rental properties are available and the cost. I would also go to the Trade Me website and have a look at what's available currently, and do some research. Another good website there to look at information about suburbs and bonds and anything to do with renting a property. Now, once you've lived in New Zealand and you've been renting, you may decide that you wish to buy a home. Okay, now one of the key differences of living in New Zealand is how our houses are built and the type of sections they're placed on. So most urban houses are standalone and built of wood. Most do not have central heating or double glazing. However, the new houses are having these features. In order to purchase a house, you will see property features in the newspapers, and on the weekends there are open homes whereby you can enter a house that's on sale and obviously have a look and inspect the house to see whether or not you like it. When you're purchasing a house, there will be special conditions in the agreement of sale and purchase, such as building inspections, title and limb searches, and subject to finance. So you would obviously engage a solicitor to ensure that you understand the legalities of purchasing a house. One key difference when compared to other countries are there are no chains, so you can buy a house relatively quickly. And nowadays, auction is a very common way of buying and selling a house. And when you're looking to buy a house by auction, you need to have an unconditional offer, which means that you have to have the finance in place and have done all your due diligence, such as a building report and solicitors' approval, etc. Median house prices. It comes to no surprise that the houses up in Auckland are obviously more expensive than the houses, say, in Christchurch. Again, please understand that this is a median. So get onto those websites like Trade Me to get a really good understanding of cost. If you're interested in the house is going for auction, I would contact the real estate agent to get an indicative cost bracket in terms of what that house will go for. So again, cost of the housing will depend where you want to live, and I would do that research in terms of understanding what that property could cost you. Healthcare. New Zealand has a public health system and it provides free public hospital treatment. Okay, and we have 40 public hospitals throughout New Zealand. I think the health system here is fantastic. The government subsidised GP visits and prescription medicines. We do have something that's very unique here, and we have an insurance which is called ACC. This will provide you compensation in the instance where you are injured. So you may be playing rugby, in the weekend, you do your ankle, and you can't go to work, your employer will pay up to 80% of your income if you are injured, and that will allow you to recover and get back to work quicker. So very popular with a lot of tradespeople who may get injured on site, and this in a sense is work insurance, if you like. So very unique to New Zealand, and it's something that your employer pays into, and something that you are able to claim back if you are injured. As with a lot of countries, you can choose to elect to have private health care. Many New Zealand citizens and residents may choose only to have public health care, but if you choose to have private health care, it means that you avoid some of the waiting queues. Premiums will obviously differ depending on your health, and therefore I would suggest you go to this website to find some more information. It's really up to you whether or not you choose to have private healthcare. There are benefits, but also there is a cost. So just bear in mind that you are entitled to free public health services for accident and emergency care. So the state will look after you, but you can choose to elect to get private healthcare if that's what you choose to do. The basic cost of healthcare, one of the key things is that if you do go to see a GP and you're over the age of 7, you will have to pay. Now, I mentioned before it is subsidised. So if I give you an example there in the table, anyone over the age of 45 years of age will be paying anywhere between 15 and 35 New Zealand dollars. Prescriptions are subsidised and by the government, and for some you may need to pay. So this may differ from where you're living. The dentist, obviously there's also costs there, and I'm not too sure whether or not that's subsidised going to the dentist, but a dentist visit can be quite expensive. So this may differ. I know in the UK you don't pay to go to your doctor, your GP, and therefore there is a bit of a difference there. So do some research into that. But if you're over the age of 7 and you go to the doctor, you will be expected to pay a fee to the doctor. The education system. New Zealand's got a well renowned education system that runs from early childhood all the way to tertiary education. In terms of primary and secondary schooling, schooling is compulsory between the ages of 6 and 16. Most kids commence school on their 5th birthday, which is pretty cool. A little bit different from other countries. The state will provide education, which is free, and our years run from years 1 to year 13. In certain cities, you need to live in a certain area to be able to apply for a school, and that's called zoning. Our term dates run from the end of January to mid-April. Term 2 runs from late April to the beginning of July. Term 3 runs from the middle of July to the middle of September. And the last and horrible term, where all the kids are tired, from mid-October to mid-December, and then we break for our summer holidays. So summer holidays go through from probably the middle of December, sometimes earlier in December, all the way to the end of January. Primary schooling is from years 1 to year 6, intermediate is from year 7 to year 8, and high school and secondary school is from years 9 to year 13. We do have some qualifications that you're able to obtain in high school in years 11, 12 and 13, and they are levels 1, level 2 and level 3 of NCEA. Okay, now some schools will combine all primary, intermediate and high school in one school. So typically that will be a rural school, whereas in the city, in the bigger towns, you'll see that there may be a primary school and an intermediate school, or just a primary school. Okay, my kids are at a primary school, and the total amount of people at that school is approximately 120 people, and they have, I think it's 6 classes. So approximately, you're probably looking at about 20 people per class, if that gives you an indication. Some of the bigger schools and some of the bigger primary schools may have a little bit more per class, but you'll find that the teacher ratio is relatively low in most schools, and the standard of schooling is very good across the board, especially in the public schooling system. Universities. New Zealand has 8 universities and 20 polytechnics, which is higher education. Now, the government do subsidise the fees for tertiary education, and student loans are available. To give you an idea, a first year arts degree is approximately 3,000 New Zealand dollars, whereas a medical degree is approximately 10,000 New Zealand dollars. So you may want to compare that to the cost of tertiary education where you are. You'll see that we are very competitive. I think the barrier to entry in New Zealand to these good universities is not as competitive as other countries, given our population, and the standard of education in these universities and tertiary institutions is very good. So do some research, and you'll find that the universities are spread out across both the North and South Island. Some useful websites for education would be these 3. Do some research. I think the first one talks about childcare. The second one would be finding the school and looking at zoning and the school's ranking. And the third one is parental leave and holidays, etc., that you may want to look into, which all differ from the schools in your country. Now, the New Zealand driver's license, the minimum age to drive in New Zealand is 16. Okay, we have 3 stages: the learner's license, the restricted license, and the full license. If you if you hold a current and valid overseas driver's license, you can drive for a period of 12 months from the date you arrive in New Zealand. Okay, now once you, if you are looking to stay here permanently, you can convert that license, your overseas license, into a New Zealand driver's license. And all that would need to be completed is an application form, an eye test, and a license fee of around 157 New Zealand dollars. Okay, so there may be driving tests depending on where you come from and where your license is issued from, but it's a relatively straightforward process. We drive on the left-hand side of the road, and we don't have some of the big highways or freeways that some of the big countries have. So relatively quite easy to get around in New Zealand in a car. We do tend to use cars a lot to get around, and I wouldn't worry too much about whether or not you are going to get a New Zealand license, because it should be relatively quite easy to swap yours over. The cost of living. This is probably an issue that a lot of people want to hear about. It's an issue that can be very difficult to discuss because it really does depend on how you wish to live your life. Okay, so I think it's really important to understand that some things will be more expensive in New Zealand due to the lack of consumer power and the distance. I mean, we are a nation in the middle of the South Pacific. We don't have a lot of bordering countries, so it's going to cost more for goods to get to New Zealand. And we also don't have the population in terms of driving prices down. So some things will definitely cost more in New Zealand, and I would encourage you to do your research. We have 15% GST on goods, and our tax rates on personal income are less than the OECD average. Just to give you an idea, the cost of petrol around $2.20 New Zealand per litre, stamps $2.20 to the UK, coffee you're looking at around $4.50 to $5. Washing machines, I think this is something that might be a little bit more expensive in New Zealand. a front loader costs anywhere between 750 to 3,000 New Zealand dollars. One thing that's quite cheap, I think, in New Zealand is televisions. If you're looking to head over here, I would buy your televisions over here. I would look into online to companies such as Harvey Norman to get an idea of cost of furniture and whiteware and electrical goods. That should give you a good example. That store is Harvey Norman. Do some research and compare the cost of those bits and those whiteware and electronics to where you're currently living, to give you a good comparison. What we've tried to do here is give you a grocery comparison. Very hard to do this to give you an idea, because it really does depend on your purchasing power, which is the money that you have left over once you taken all the expenses out. We went shopping at Countdown in New Zealand, and also we went shopping in the UK, South Africa and Canada at some well-known supermarkets in those countries. And you'll see we went and bought some milk, some bread, some eggs, some butter, some tea bags, pasta, cooking oil, apples, potatoes, lamb chops, because we're in New Zealand, laundry power, potato chips or crisps, and some wine. That came out to about 75 New Zealand dollars. Now we bought the same amount in the UK, which was very roughly the same. In South Africa, you'll see that it was slightly cheaper. In Canada, it was a little bit more expensive when you compared that. So the purpose of this grocery comparison would just give you an idea of some of the key staple things that you would buy. Obviously, in New Zealand, you can go to the supermarket, or you can buy your groceries and your fruit from a fruit and vegetable shop, which will mean it's more cheaper. So again, it's quite hard to really give you this comparison if you wish. The best thing to do is, if you are in New Zealand, get to your local supermarket, do some shopping, and that will be a really good barometer in terms of how you think the overall cost of groceries are in New Zealand. So I will also go to the websites and have a look at the countdown.co.nz to give you an idea of the cost of other products in the supermarket. Okay, so you're probably asking, why move to New Zealand? Well, I think a lot of you have got a lot in common in terms of the fact that I think it's probably going to be more lifestyle driven and the want for a better quality life. Based on 39 factors, we were ranked, Auckland was ranked number 3 in the world. Okay, and in the cost of living survey, Auckland was ranked number 61 in the world, where the most expensive city is ranked number 1. Okay, so when you compare the cost of living and the quality of life, we rank, obviously rank quite highly in the quality of life, and we also rank quite competitively in terms of the cost of living. In 2017, we were rated as joint number 1 with Denmark for the least corrupt country in the world. Okay, so just some data there for you to consider how we compare against other countries in the world in terms of our quality of life, in terms of how costly it is. But these are really good stats, and you probably know that in terms of the move to New Zealand and the benefits of that. In terms of the economy, we have had some great times in the last two to 3 years. We are certainly going to need more skilled workers in the next 2 to 3 years, hence the reason why we're running these webinars. So, it's a really good time to be looking at coming to New Zealand with a strong economy and a really good job, employment outlook for people looking for work. In terms of education, our 15-year-olds scored ahead of those in the UK on reading, maths and science in a report in 2015. Our socio-political, New Zealand's the least corrupt country in the world, which is great. You know, for some of you, especially looking to move from South Africa, you know, this is a key stat for New Zealand, certainly one that attracts a lot of people to New Zealand. In terms of the landscape, you know, I've just been on holiday for just recently travelled in the South Island. We have just got stunning landscape. We've got so much space, and you know, there's a lot for you to see and do. There is a lot free of charge. So you know, when you get here, not only will you be having a new lifestyle, but you will also be able to go out and venture and discover New Zealand. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful part of the world. In terms of the population, you know, when you consider our landmass, we have a small population. If I compare to the UK, our landmass is the same, but in the UK, you've got 63 million people. So population does affect your lifestyle. If there's more people, it's going to be hard to get around. And I do feel that New Zealand's population means that you can have that lifestyle where it's not impacted by a lot of people in terms of you know, congestion on the roads, and small things like demand for education and things like that. Okay, definitely space. You know, why you move to New Zealand, space. You know, more people live in Auckland, the whole of the South Island. So, you know, there's an abundance of space, and that allows you to have that work-life balance. You know, it's not uncommon for people to be, you know, skiing one day and in one day, and also surfing, you know, because that's we have the space, and you're able to get around quickly, so you can enjoy that quality of life. And also the innovation, you know, we currently, our Prime Minister is a woman, and you know, New Zealand were the first to become first country in the world to give women the right to vote. So we are very innovative in New Zealand in terms of you know, these key factors. We've got an open mind, and we're very proud of that. Some quotes: no matter where you are in New Zealand, you're approximately 15 minutes from somewhere spectacularly beautiful. I do believe that. You know, once you get to New Zealand, you understand that. A client that we helped immigrate to Christchurch, you're 30 minutes away from the beach and just over an hour away from the ski mountains. So very easy to get around, and all these things are very accessible and on your doorstep. So why move? The boat, the batch, and the barbecue, that is essentially the Kiwi lifestyle. And if you come in that summer period, you'll see that people are on holidays, people using their boats, people are outside in the parks and in the beaches having a barbecue. And I think that's the key thing, is having that outdoor lifestyle and having a new lifestyle. And that's why a lot of you are on this webinar, to see whether or not you're able to obtain that lifestyle. Okay, so we're going to move on to how to find work in New Zealand. And Skills in Demand is a company that are able to help you find work in New Zealand. Just a bit of background on Skills in Demand. It's a New Zealand-based company with presence in the UK. Rachel Beattie and Susanna Dyson are currently in the UK, and we are shortly appointing a general manager in New Zealand, in Christchurch. The previous general manager has left, and we're looking to appoint someone shortly. Skills in Demand work with large and reputable, well-established companies. They, over the last 6 years, have assisted well over 500 people to work and live in New Zealand. So certainly a company that you'll be looking to contact to see if they're able to assist you on the job search. Now, New Zealand Skills in Demand was set up after the Christchurch earthquakes, and you know, there was a big Christchurch rebuild. It's still ongoing, and that's pretty much the rebuild of Christchurch. It's a $40 billion project, probably around 40 to 50% of the way through the rebuild, so there's still a lot to do. A lot of commercial buildings and anchor projects still to be done. There are still a lot of tradespeople required for the rebuild. The central city will be redeveloped, and it's going to be a very exciting city to live in once the rebuild's finished. And along with the commercial side of things, a lot of homes will be built and will need to be repaired. So certainly a lot of work commercially and residentially, and also in the horizontal infrastructure. I mean, in terms of Christchurch, there is a lot of work going on with the motorways. There's a lot of work going on with the roads to get that back up to a standard for people to get around. So certainly a lot to do in Christchurch. However, the work is not just confined to Christchurch, and there is a bit of a construction boom across New Zealand where a lot of construction professionals and tradespeople are required. So the likes of Auckland and Tauranga, they're growing in population, building consents are skyrocketing, and there's just a lot of work to do. So it's not just about Christchurch, it's about New Zealand in general. And what you'll find is that whilst we're focusing on construction here, there are a lot of industries that will benefit from that boom and mean that there are going to be skilled workers required across the board. What do you need to do to get a job? You'll need to provide skills in demand with your CV and a candidate briefing document, which is a document that they will provide to you. You need to give written work references from them, from employers that you've worked with, and also clients if you've been self-employed. It's important that you do have electronic copies of documents, and you're able to use Skype because a lot of the interviews are undertaken over Skype, and you must understand and have started the visa process. The clients and recruiters that Skills in Demand works with will require you to be out there within 8 weeks once you've got a job offer. Okay, so it's really important that you are ready to go, and you've got all that information and have started the visa process to get to New Zealand to start work. It's important to note that New Zealand Skills Demand concentrates, primarily on the construction sector. That's where the demand is. So as you can see, there's a lot of construction roles there. In addition to that, you also see there's some IT roles and also some accountancy and finance roles. So if you've got those skills, if you're in that skill set and the qualifications and work experience, please do contact New Zealand Skills Demand and send them your CV and the candidate briefing document. If you're not on the list, please still be in touch with your CV because they may be able to point you in the right direction. If you're not on the list, don't worry too much because this is the specialism that New Zealand Skills Demand concentrate on. There are other recruiters who are looking for other skill sets such as teachers and healthcare, hospitality, etc. in New Zealand, and there is still demand across the board in all occupations. So whilst Skills in Demand concentrates on construction, feel free to send them your CV and to be pointed in the right direction. The process, I think, what you're doing at the minute is it's important that you are learning about New Zealand. It's a big decision to make, and you need to make that decision whether or not you want to go. You need to overcome any potential issues. Okay, so do you have a house to sell? Are you selling vehicles? Are you closing businesses down? You need to inform family about the move. So just make sure that all those issues are covered and you're ready to go, because employers will want you out there as soon as possible. Work out when you want to arrive in New Zealand, so realistically when you can do it. Okay, so if it's 6 months from now, you want to be looking at putting your CV forward 3 months from when you're looking to go. Okay, so everyone's going to have different timeframes because people want to sell houses, etc. It's important that you sit down and work out what your timeframes are and work towards those. And Skills in Demand will work with you regarding that. Gather the documentation required for New Zealand Skills in Demand and send them through to them. It's really important that you speak to them, get them all the documents so that they can screen you, and if they feel that they can put you forward for roles, they will be in touch with you. Okay. start the visa process, whether or not it's applying for your working holiday visa or engaging an immigration advisor to help with you. The more organised you are, the better you'll look in front of New Zealand employers and recruiters, and the less stressful it's going to be. Okay, engage with some of our partners. We'll send you some details about them, and then once you've done all that, which sounds very simple, and you've got the job offer, you got your visa, book your tickets, and get on a plane for a better lifestyle and the opportunity to have that outdoor lifestyle on your doorstep. So, this is the process. It sounds a lot easier than what it is, but get some guidance and get someone to point you in the right direction, and contact the guys from New Zealand Skills in Demand who will be able to assist you. Okay, so on to the New Zealand immigration process. Now, there's been a lot of changes in last year in the immigration side of things and the policy. We've had a change of government who have said that they're looking to reduce numbers. Obviously, New Zealand's a very popular destination for migrants, given the economy and the work-life balance. So it's really important that you do understand the immigration process. In terms of Migration Associates, Migration Associates are a company based in the UK and New Zealand. There are full licensed advisors in both the UK and New Zealand. Migration Associates has assisted over 2,000 families and individuals to work and live in New Zealand. And the key thing is they specialise only in New Zealand immigration. So they understand the policy and the process of New Zealand visas. Now, Migration Associates has that strategic relationship with New Zealand Skills in Demand, because in most cases, you will need a job offer to get a visa. Okay. Last year, the NZAMI awarded Migration Associates as a finalist last year in 2017 for Immigration Advisor of the Year. So we are, Migration Associates are recognised onshore as a leading immigration advisor, and certainly been around for a long time to assist people making the move from all parts of the world. Where it starts is the New Zealand visa evaluation. So it's important that you complete the online visa evaluation form. Migration Associates will provide you with a work visa evaluation or a skilled migrant category visa evaluation that will assist you to understand your visa eligibility, and also detail the cost and the timeframes of the visas that you're looking to apply. Migration Associates will also provide an immigration report to New Zealand Skills in Demand, and that immigration report will detail that you are eligible for a visa, and a sort of report that New Zealand Skills in Demand would provide to their employers in terms of the due diligence on a candidate's immigration eligibility. Visa types. There are a lot of visa types, and we're not going to cover them all in this webinar presentation. The main one that a lot of people look to is the skilled migrant category. It's points-based. You need to obtain 160 points or more in order to lodge an expression of interest. You must be between 20 and 55, have meet the character and medical requirements. It will take 2 to 6 months to process. And as alluded to before, the government are making things tougher to get residency, and there were some changes recently in 2017 to increase that point score from what was 140 to 160. So as part of the evaluation process, we will detail your eligibility on whether or not you and your family can meet the criteria under the skilled migrant category to get residency. Another way to get residency is actually to apply for what's called a work to residency visa with an accredited employer. You need a job offer which is full-time for 2 years or more. Your employer must be accredited. You must be earning $55,000 or more on a per annum basis based on 40 hours per week, meet the health and character requirements. After working 24 months with the accredited employer, you can then apply for residency. Okay, and that's improved within 15 working days. So a lot quicker than the skilled migrant category, but you are on a temporary visa for 2 years until you can apply for residency, whereas with the skilled migrant category, you get residency probably within 3 to 6 months, so it's a lot quicker. Now, If you got a job offer tomorrow, it's likely that you will apply for an essential skills work visa, which is a temporary work visa for you and your family. You need a job offer from an employer, a New Zealand employer. You must have qualifications and work experience related to the role. There must be no New Zealand citizens or residents available for the role, so that's labour market tested. You will need to meet the health and character requirements. Your validity of your visa could be 1, 3 or 5 years, and that depends on the skill level of your occupation. That's something that we'll go through with you. If you do end up in New Zealand, you're working for employer A and you get a job with employer B, you can vary the conditions of your work visa to work with employer B. So the point is, you're not stuck with employer A, you just need to go through another immigration process to vary the conditions of your visa. The reason why you'll be applying for this visa is it's processed within 20 working days. So your New Zealand employer will require you to start work ASAP, and this is the mechanism or the this is how we would achieve that. So you'd apply for that skill, the work visa ASAP, so that you can get that and travel out to New Zealand to commence work. You may then decide to apply for residency at the same time. We'll go through how later in this presentation on how the visas can work together. Now, if you're under the age of 31, you can apply for a working holiday visa, depending on if your country has a scheme with New Zealand. So, for instance, I'll give you an example here of British citizens. Anyone under 31 can apply for either 23 or 12-month working holiday visa. The main purpose is the holiday. You can, however, work for 12 months, and whilst in New Zealand, you can convert into a work visa. Okay, approved within 2 to 5 working days. So if you're able to get a working holiday visa, I would encourage you to do so, as it allows you to enter New Zealand and in most cases start work as soon as possible. And then in the long term, you may be able to convert to a work visa. So I think, it's really important that you do build an immigration strategy, and that's why we're here to help you. It's really important you understand, your visa eligibility and how all the visas can work together. Okay. Once you understand your eligibility and understand how all these visas can work, you put in place that strategy, and we would advise you on what documents to obtain. We'd advise you on the timeframes and the cost for your budgeting. So for instance, some people may apply for the skilled migrant category alongside the work visa, or a working holiday visa alongside a work visa. So everyone's going to be different, and it's important that you do put together an immigration strategy so that you can follow and have direction on. Okay, medicals and police certificates. You must have an acceptable standard of health. Okay, so I would encourage you to visit your GP to obtain a general checkup. Medical is valid for 3 months, so only obtain this once you've got a job offer. Okay, the medicals can be obtained by an INZ panel of doctors, so there will be a panel of doctors in your country close to you that you can choose to get a medical and chest x-ray certificate. Once you have the job offer, book your medical, because they're only valid for 3 months. Okay, you must be of good character, so I would obtain a police certificate now if you're looking to go to New Zealand within the next 6 months. Because they are valid for 6 months. Any previous criminal convictions must be disclosed. Failure to disclose these criminal convictions could mean that your application is declined. So it's really important that you're open and honest with us in Immigration New Zealand and disclose those previous misdemeanors that occurred in the past. Some of you may have an occupation that requires New Zealand occupational registration. It's not limited, but here's some to these occupations. There are others, but these are examples: teachers, nurses, plumbers, electricians, and gas fitters. This is an extra step in the visa process and can be quite complex and time-consuming. Some New Zealand employers will require to have registration before they consider you for the job offer. So it's important you do get that process started. As I said, some can take up to 3 to 4 months to complete. So it's really important that if you do need occupational registration, that you start this process. And for some occupations, we can assist you with this process. So why use Migration Associates? Well, you know, immigration is a complex process. It's the most important part of your move to New Zealand, along with getting that job offer. And also there's a lot of changes with the new government to the immigration policies. So it's important that you keep abreast of the changes and whether or not the changes do affect you. So Migration Associates is licensed with a regulatory body. So you can only get immigration advice from someone who's licensed. We are trusted. An example of us being named as a finalist in 2017 for Immigration Advisor of the Year is a great testament to the hard work that our team have put and worked with our clients. We have a high success rate and less delays because we understand the process, and we'll assist you with documentation preparation and ensure that those documents are correct. To avoid any delays, we'll liaise with Immigration New Zealand on your behalf to ensure that they process your application smoothly. We'll also liaise with your employer to ensure that we get the correct documents from them. We will create an immigration strategy with you, depending on your circumstances, your timeframes, etc. It's a very heavy paperwork process, and we understand what paperwork's required. We won't lodge anything until we've got the right paperwork, because failure to do so may lead in delays. So we understand what's required by Immigration New Zealand, and therefore we will ensure that things get lodged as soon as possible. And because of that knowledge, we'll save you time, save you money, and we will limit some of your stress levels. We'll also push you along the process to minimise delays. Okay, and like I said before, with these immigration changes, it's important to understand that and understand how they may affect you in the future. My advice is to get a personal consultation, whether or not it's face-to-face in the UK or in New Zealand, or a Skype consultation. It is a big decision that you'll make. So it's important you do sit down with a licensed immigration advisor to understand your eligibility, the cost and the timeframes, and most importantly, have all your queries addressed. So really important that you do speak to someone about this. There is a lot of information that may not be relevant to you on forums, etc. And it's such a big move, and anything that you get wrong may be costly and may connect to their social media pages. A lot of information on their Facebook page, notifications on their Twitter account, and also some great photos on their Pinterest account. So if you are looking at going to New Zealand, do some research, get information to your fingertips, and certainly sign up to those social media pages. Okay, so we've come to the end of the webinar. I know it's been quite a long webinar, and I thank you for your patience. We are now going to move on to the Q&A session. After the webinar, we'll email you some more information and suggested next steps. I would encourage you to send your CV and candidate briefing documents to New Zealand Skills Demand and complete the Migration Associates online form to understand your visa eligibility. So what we will do now is kick on with the Q&A session. So please do type your questions and we will answer those live. So thank you very much for attending this webinar. This presentation will now finish, but the Q&A session will start, and please feel free to ask any questions you may have. Thank you.